Okay, so we will be doing lab 8. Generally it's pretty smooth, except for the last part. You might run into a little bit of error, and I have a workaround for it. And I will show you how and why it's generating an error. So, because if you're using the computer here, not your laptop, then you can just open up Packet Tracer for our lab, and log in if you haven't logged into your account. But if you are doing it on your personal computer or outside of school, and if you need Packet Tracer, you still need to log in and be able to download. Okay. So first thing, we're going to start with part C. Lab is generally short today, so we are going to skip the first two because if you already have an account, you just log into it and you are going to open up the app. Okay, so we'll start with part C together. So you just search for Packet Tracer on your computer and click the app to open. If you haven't remembered your credential, then it will open this up. If not, click the right side where the green button is to log in, and then click it again to load your workspace. Okay, so on the empty workspace, what we will do is we are going to create a topology by adding the devices and configure them similar to last week's lab, but in this case, we're going to work more with the switch and the router. So in the next step, it tells you to click on the network devices and find the routers on the left pane. So on the left here, you should see the first button, right below the timer. That's your network devices. And make sure that we select the right model, okay? So we're going to locate the 1841 router and drag it to the workspace. So if you click network devices and you don't see your appliances, make sure that you look to see if you select the type of appliances that's correct. So here it's default to the router option. And then if you go to the right side a little bit, you should see the 1841, or you can expand the arrow to see more, right? So I'm simply going to drag the 1841 model router to my workspace. So the 241, you should see it closer to the right side on the bottom.
You said 1841?
Yeah, it says that on the lab. Step 3. So we're doing part C. Because if you drag other model in, you might not have the same configuration for your protocols. So want to make sure that we match it. Okay. So once that happens, we are going to add some PC, right? We're going to add a couple PC, kind of like the picture that you see in step 7. So on your app, you are going to click the next button on the right of your network devices where it says end devices. Click that, and then you should be able to see your devices and just drag the PC to your workspace. We need 2. So once we have those 2, we are going to connect them for step 6. So I just did step 5. Now you are going to use a crossover cable to connect directly from the PC to the router. In the real world, if you're using Cisco appliances, you need to connect with the console to configure, or if you want to connect to your router. Router doesn't have a lot of ports, right? I mentioned this when we did the topology in week 1. Router usually only have 2, so it's unlike the switch. You can't connect that many, and you would likely need the crossover cable to be able to connect. So click on the lightning bolt, which is the connection option, the 4th one from the left, and you're gonna select if you put your cursor over it on the bottom, it shows you copper crossover. That's basically Ethernet crossover, right? So you click the dotted straight line option. You can start with your PC. So it tells you here that you are going to connect fast Ethernet to fast Ethernet. So select my cable, which is the straight dotted line. Click on the PC, select fast Ethernet 0, and then click on the router, select fast Ethernet 0. It's okay that it shows red right now. It's going to take a little bit of time, so we can also configure it to make it green. And then you do the same thing for the other one, right? It tells you that you connect fast Ethernet to fast Ethernet for the first PC, PC0, and PC1, okay? So I will go back to my packet tracer again, select the connection, click the crossover, right? We can go from PC, fast Ethernet 0, and then the only fast Ethernet port left on the router is the 0/1. So it only has 2 Ethernet connection, right? You cannot have that many, okay? On a router. So it would look like this, similar to what you see with step 7. So next, what we will do is we will click on the router. And when you click it, it would show the back of it, right? You can add in the module if you need to for other things, but we don't. So check to see if the power is on. So look at the power button, it shows green. Then we are going to configure it. First, we're going to name our router in the CLI, in the command line. Remember the commands that we learned last week? We're going to use it this week. Okay, so I'm going to open up my window here. And once you click your router, it shows like this. You're going to click the CLI tab at the top. Now, out of the box, when you turn on the router, it will prompt you something like this. Now, if you have an existing router that's been configured, it will not prompt you to set up, okay? So the next step we're going to do is step 9. So once you click CLI, you're going to see the prompt at the bottom. It says, would you like to enter the initial configuration? You're going to type yes, lowercase, and press enter.
Where'd you go to?
CLI tab once you click the router. That's step 9. And then type in yes to do the initial configuration. Now it asks you, would you like to enter the basic management setup? Type yes, lowercase, again for step 10. So 2 yeses. But read the prompt. So say yes again for step 10. Then now what we're going to do is we are going to change the name router to R1. So it says enter the host name. Just type capital R and 1 and press enter. And another way to do this is through the command line itself and type hostname R1. We'll do something similar in the future steps. Okay, so I did step 11 by typing in R1. I'm going to rename my router as R1. I did. And then I'm going to use the secret for authentication. So it's ideal that you set up the secret key, right? That is different than your password in Cisco appliances. Okay. So later on, when it asks you for secret key, go back to step 12. See how I highlighted? That's what you're going to put in. And it's a Linux system, so you don't see the cursor blinking as you type or moving. Okay, so just type. All right. So enter your secret. You're going to do my capital M, right? Cisco network. So ideally in the real world, we want complex, lengthy secret phrase, okay? So for practice, that's easy. In this lab, I just have it my Cisco network, and then we're gonna press enter once we enter our secret information. And then it tells you to put in your password. That will be step 13. So CIS-40A with an exclamation point, all caps. Now, the regular password allows you to access the system along with the secret. The remote or virtual password is for if you're at home and you need to configure that router, you connect to it with an IP address and then you type in your password, which is step 14. Sorry. So we were gonna put in our remote virtual password for terminal. Remote Cisco R1. Press enter. And it says, do you want to configure simple network management protocol? Not for now. We will do that later. So we're going to type in no. What SNMP can do for you is that you can manage multiple appliances all together. It would allows you to check to see if they're on. So a lot of times it's ideal, but for security reasons, sometimes it's not recommended if you're using like an outdated protocol. So there's a mix in opinion about that, right? But it is available if you need to. So we're going to type in no and press enter. So what it normally does is it's going to give you the interface summary. These are ports or physical connection for the system. You would see, right, there's no IP address that's assigned yet for each one, even though we know we connect the PC to the router already, right? There is a VLAN one that doesn't have an IP address. And it tells you that it's down, right? That means that it's not fully linking. So now I always look at the interface to kind of see like which port am I working with. So what you're going to do is you are going to review the summary and then you are going to access the first port, which is the fast Ethernet 00. Okay. So it tells you that enter the interface name used to connect to the management console. So basically we're using the PC0 to manage the router connecting at fast Ethernet 00. Okay. So we're going to type it as it is named. You have to see how it's shown. It's exactly like that. You have to type it. Otherwise, it doesn't know how you want to identify that interface. So fast Ethernet. Now, some system allows you to do FA, capital F, lowercase a, but we're going to type it as how it's listed. Fast Ethernet 0/0, no space. So at this point, it says you're accessing the interface. So in command line, we simply use the interface command and then the name of the interface. So you do interface fast Ethernet 00. So when it's walking you through the steps, it's the same as, you know, the next thing that you're going to enter in the command. So we're going to configure the IP address. You want to say yes here, right? Type lowercase yes and press enter. And it asks you for the IP address. So we're going to type in 192.168.10.1. Press enter and then put in the subnet mask for step 19. So it is a classful IP and that belongs to class C. So it tells you that this is the interface, fast Ethernet 00. It's like using this command, right? No shutdown. It's going to activate that port now. And then the IP address, you would use IP address command and put in the IP, which we did. So when it walks you through the prompt, it simply uses command in the back. The other ports is not configured yet, so it shows shutdown because it's not enabled, right? It doesn't have an IP address yet. Okay, so now it tells you to select option 2 because we want to save this configuration to the RAM, right? No point in configure if you don't save, so type in 2 and press enter. And normally it shows you the state of your link, whether it's up and down or change, right? You see that there. Don't disregard these things that's shown, right? Okay, so now we're going to use command line like what we learned last week. So you see the blinking, just press enter key, and it's going to take you to the user access mode. When you see the arrow with the host name, that's your user access mode, okay? Now we're going to go into the privilege mode by typing enable, and I'm at step 22. You can also do EN in most appliances, but enable allows you to access the next mode, which is privilege mode. It is confusing here. The password is not the password. It's the secret key, which is number 12. So type that in and the cursor doesn't change. So when you get to the password, type in the secret information from step 12, which is my Cisco network. It doesn't change your cursor. You just type. If you don't type it correct, it will prompt you to type again.
No, I mean like apparently because I guess I clicked out of it, so it wasn't typing anything at all.
Oh yeah, you have to click in it. It's a simulator, so you have to select it, right? Okay, so now you see how we are in the privilege mode where it becomes a hashtag next to the host name, and that's how you can tell, right? So the step is that you're gonna go from the read only to the privilege, which you can change some system information, but we need to go to the global mode, the global configuration mode. So we're gonna do step 24. So config term to access the global configuration mode. You can also type configuration terminal, but config term will do. And you notice that it adds the config in the parentheses in the path. That's important. That's when you know that I can change configuration at this point. Okay, so the step would be enable, right? Put in the secret information if you need to, and then do config term to get to the configuration mode. So I'm at 25. Now we are going to put in the IP address for the second port, right? But we need to access it first. So we're going to do interface, right? Fast Ethernet type as is, 0/1, no space. Remember, it only has 2 fast Ethernet on the router. Now we're going to access the second one because we already did the first one through the prompt. And once you tell it to configure the interface, you notice that it adds the if to the config. So that allows you to access that port to configure. Now we're going to type in IP address, right? 192.168.20.1 space the subnet mask. 255.255.255.0. And then press enter. Make sure you check everything you type correctly. What if I type wrong, right? I just need to reconfigure the IP address. So, okay. And it took it fine because it's a router, right? So now you have two ports. One is 192.168.10.1. That's a different network than a .20.1, right? Because it's network host, right? For a class C. Okay. Clear so far? Any question? Pretty easy. All right, baby steps. Okay, now we need to do a no shutdown so we can save and activate it. So no shutdown. And it's going to update the state. So see how it says now it's up. Earlier, it was shut down where it's not available, right? So when you do no shutdown, it turns it on, activate it. Okay, so when you see that, just press enter to go back to your pop-up, because sometimes it doesn't give you that, and that's typical. Now what we're going to do is we are going to configure the SNMP right. So earlier we said no, but now we're going to do it through commands, right? So we're going to do SNMP -server, step 28, community, public, RO, read only, not zero, RO, capital O. So that means that other systems can view it, some information publicly, right? Like it can read it, it can see it, like other routers. But your SNMP server community private read write, that means that when we change or when we manage, when we configure the SNMP server, that requires write privileges, which is higher, right? It's private. So that means that it requires authentication and be able to access that. Okay. So it says that it's going, the agent on the host is going through R1, undergoing verifying start. And then now you're going to do SNMP -server community private read write. So here I added some information that it is an application layer protocol, right? We learned that in the past. It allows you to standardize management capability for your routers and switch components, your agents and their ports on the network. So what it does is we can use it for inventory. It can check to see which system is on or off, up or down. And you can also send notification to other systems, like other routers that are part of different subnets. So I put down the link for documentation if you want to go back and play with it, right? It's a simulator, so you can just do whatever you want to it, right? So you can practice. Okay, now we're going to do a static route. Notice that I am in the config mode, right? And we're going to do IP route 192.168.10.0. And that's from the 255.255.255.0 subnet. And we're going to route it to another router that has 10.10.10.2. Or that could be another appliance, right? It doesn't have to be specifically a router. So this is how you put in a static route in the router. Okay, we talked about that today. So I put that you create a path, a route from your router and the first port 0/0, and you can send that to a 10.2. Now this could be a firewall, right? To filter, this could be a security appliance system. It doesn't necessarily have to be a router, right? Unless you want to a router and pass it to another router, right? So you can set it however you want. So that means that, let's say that I want people to connect to my network and then check to see if their system is allowable so I can send it to a security appliance. And once that security appliance clear, then we can have it forwarded to like maybe subnet 2 or and so on. So we basically set up our transit system to bring the traffic into certain part of the network, and then you can send it to different area of the network that way by just setting up routes. Okay. So it kind of gel now that you see with the address and all of the things we do. Okay, now once you create the route, you're not done. You have to do an IP routing command to enable that route. So you can make as many routes as you want, but you have to activate that route. And if it doesn't throw error, you're good.
I got an error.
So IP space routing. And make sure that you check what kind of error do you have.
It was because when I put the first part, but I accidentally set it as one long IP
Oh,
address.
yeah. So make sure space matters because it doesn't understand like what part of your input is subnet mask or IP. Okay. So now we're going to use RIP, right? And we talked about RIP today, which I also put the note there, which is your routing information protocol. So the router might have many different protocols. We can activate a certain protocol for a specific port and for a specific reason or purpose. So that means that I can have one port that uses RIP and another port that uses something else if it's capable of doing that, right? Sometimes I have students making mistakes where they set RIP for the routers that don't handle RIP, okay? In the newer routers, if it doesn't have RIP, you cannot tell it to do RIP. It's kind of like if you're not, if a person cannot drive and I tell them to drive, they're not going to be able to drive, okay? So we're going to do a router RIP. But we're going to tell it to use version 2, not the first version. So you're going to do the next step 32, version 2. And I recommend for the security students in this class that's learning networking, it's good to read RFC that relates to your protocol because, and the notification for the security vulnerability with it, because if your system is configured with version 1 and you continue to use it, someone can perform attacks or, access your resources because you're using a dated version. Okay, so you have to go in and reconfigure your system. That's a vulnerability on your network. Okay, and we want a stable secure version. So right now we're, but if your router only handle version 2, let's say that they have a version 3 release, then you cannot go forward. So in that case, we have to upgrade the appliance to handle newer, better secure version, right? Or sometime reinstall the new OSs, which might be able to handle it, but usually you have to buy a new appliance. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we are going to specify the list of network that is going to handle RIP, and RIP uses distance vector. Okay, so next you're going to do, and you notice that when you set up router RIP, you see how it adds the router to the path, right? That's the difference. So pay attention to those things because sometimes you're in the wrong path and you tell it to do something else and it doesn't like it because it's embedded system Linux, so you see. Okay, network 192.168.10.1. And then we are going to disable the auto summarization of the subnet routes into the network level routes. This is going to allow us to pass across the classful network for the boundaries. So you might have a mix of classless and classful network, and sometimes you would have boundaries, right? So like what we talked about, what will be classful, what, so using different subnet, right? The router, it's, you instruct it to transfer or transmit your traffic a certain way. And this is how you control it. So we're going to do a no auto summary. Because that way, right, it's going to disable that option when it's passing the traffic between one networks to the next if they are different. Then what we're going to do, we're done now. So we are going to exit out of the configuration mode. So type exit, and sometime N would also work. And you notice that you move back one step. Now you're still in the config mode. You are going to do a write memory. So it's going to write to your NVRAM. Oh, sorry. Did I? Oh, I'm sorry. You have to do exit twice. You have to get out of the config mode. I apologize. You have to be in the privilege mode to save. So do exit twice. So if it throws an error like me, you just type exit again. And then when you're in the privilege mode, you notice that it shows a hashtag. Then you do a write memory. Or you can up arrow key and it'll repeat the last command. And it should say okay there, right? Because basically whatever that you have changed, it saves that to the NVRAM of the system. And then I'm going to exit out of the mode. So do an exit. The reason why is I want to go back and view it. So once that happened, I wanted to go back to the user privilege mode. So when you see it like this, and it's the same on the real system, you're going to press the enter key. And when you see the little arrow, you know that it is in the user exec mode. And in this mode, we can view configuration, but we cannot change it, right? We can see it. So we're going to do, I'm sorry, we're going to go back to the privilege mode. So you're going to do enable. The reason why I made you do that is because you know how to get in and out of the mode. So enable. And then again, the secret is my Cisco network. Okay.
Funny how I forgot the password that fast.
Okay. So we are here at step 38 after we type in our secret information. And now we're going to look at the configuration. So if you don't do a summary, if you do running config, it's going to be long. Okay, so expect that. So in Cisco appliances, show command display things that are set inside the system. So we are going to do a show running dash config. And press enter. So it shows that you have your name, right, set R1. You enable your secret information. You have a password. And then to go more, you can just keep pressing enter, and it just goes to the next part until, you know. So sometime when you do a show command, you might want to do a brief as an option for it, so that way it gives you a condensed or a summarized detail list. Otherwise, it's like this, okay? But if you keep pressing enter, you would see that the IP address that we had set with the prompt and the IP address that we had set with the command that shows up. That's good. We can check that way. It is going to default to duplex because the router is supposed to send and receive simultaneously. And the speed is adjustable based on the traffic. So it should say speed auto. Okay, and you can press the arrow key down to move forward to your pop-up. Now, what we're going to do, or you can press enter to view more. So step 40 we did. We're going to do 41. We are going to display IP information only. So you are going to do show IP interface brief. And you want brief because you don't want it to list like what you saw above, right? We want a little table so that way it's quick to see. So it tells you the port, the relevant IP that we had set, whether that port is up or down, right? And the protocol that's up or down. The only thing that we didn't assign was your VLAN 1. Take a screenshot at this point. And you need to go back to the topology and take a screenshot. So it should be green now. So this screenshot and your CLI. You can put it together and take one screenshot. Okay, now we're going to go into the PC. We're going to put in the default gateway for each of the PC. Okay, and then I will fix the last few steps with you. So go to your PC, right? You can click on configure. And then you can put in 192.168.10.1. And then once you set it, I don't think on this one you need to save. Okay. And then this other PC config, and then you can put in your default gateway 192.168, the second PC, .2020.1. So your gateway, you can have it only use, right, that port on that router, because there has been 2 ports. Yes, question? It's 192.168.10.1. Right? That's the first IP address that we put in for the first port. And then the second IP address we put in for the second port. Does that make sense? So on this router, you only have 2 ports, right? One is for gateway 1 and the second is for gateway 2. We set the IP address for it, and then we go and configure the system that connect to the IP address using the IP, right?
So
Okay.
the IP for both of them would be the same, right?
No.
Oh.
The first IP address, if you look back in the step, right, the prompt section, I might have it reversed, but one should be a .20 and then the second one is .10. Yeah, so you need to set this one, right? One is a .10.1 and then the other one is the .20.1.
Yeah, that would be.
Okay, next, I can change this actually to make it technically correct, but it should still be okay. You can also test with you can do a ping test to it from one PC to another to see if it routes. That's another way. You can do a trace route. You guys already know the utility by now, so you can troubleshoot.
So PC0 should be the
The 20 and then the other one. I had it reversed, sorry, because the steps was using 20. Okay. All right. Any question? Okay, so we already did this, did the screenshot, did the configuration, put in the router IP addresses. Now what you're gonna do is you can remove your component, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna simulate this network. Okay. So we're gonna keep the router the same. We're gonna add the switch. We're gonna add 3 more systems to that switch. We're gonna add the server. So go back to your workspace. I'm gonna close this for now for my router because I'm gonna add the switch. So what I'll do is, let me look at the diagram. So I'm gonna keep PC1. I'm gonna add PC2, 3, and 4. I'm gonna delete PC0. So click on it and then click the delete button at the top, which is the X next to the magnifying glass, or you can press the delete key on your keyboard. And it says, are you sure? So I'm going to delete PC0. I'm going to keep 1. Okay. Then next, I'm going to add my switch and connect it to the router with, so it tells you to do that here, right, with the crossover. And then I'm going to add the PC and the server to my switch. And the switch we're using is the 2960. Okay, so go back here, go to your network appliances, which is the first option. And then click on the switch on the bottom next to the router, right? Make sure you select switch, otherwise you cannot find it. And the 2960 is the first one on that. And then I click delete option and I deleted the cable between the router and the PC. I'm going to connect the PC now to my 2960. Okay, now we're gonna connect them together. So I need to add 3 more PC and a server. So click end devices and then drag the PC in. And then find the server and drag it in. Now the server and the other PC will be connecting with straight through. So click on your lightning bolt. And then you're gonna click on the copper straight through. I'm gonna start with the server. So bless you. So I can go fast Ethernet 0 on the server and connecting to the switch. I will go with the fast Ethernet 0/1. So fast Ethernet to fast Ethernet, server to switch. And then subsequently, you can do the same for the other 3 PC. So let me move it so it looks kind of like the other one. So straight through PC to fast Ethernet to switch, just connect it on the next port, port 2. Click the straight through cable, PC3, fast Ethernet to the switch, fast Ethernet, port 3. Click the straight through, PC2, connect to fast Ethernet to the switch, I'll connect to 4. So just go down the list. And you can start the other way too. It doesn't matter, right? As long as you know which cable and which port. Okay. So these are all straight through. And eventually you will see the amber turning green because it takes time for the signal to pass. Then you are going to use the crossover and connect the router to the switch. And we're going to keep the, so crossover here, router, right? We can go fast Ethernet 0 to the switch fast Ethernet. I can do the 5 or the bottom. But technically, if you have gigabit on both ends, you should connect them in a higher speed. But we don't. So we're going to do fast Ethernet to fast Ethernet. So a better way would be a router to a switch with the first port and then the rest, all the subsequent ports. So, you know, you can set up your cabling in order so that way it's nicer. That's up to you. Okay, then the same thing, crossover, fast Ethernet 1 to the PC, fast Ethernet 0. Right? Kind of like a little shape, a little different. You can move stuff around. Whatever you like. Same.
Wait, what was the fast Ethernet cord you're talking about? Like, which one was it?
Crossover is the dotted PC to that. Done? Good. You too, thank you. Fast Ethernet, the crossover from router to the switch. Just go down the list for the fast Ethernet. They are all fast Ethernet. Okay. So now we're going to do a switch. Okay. We're going to configure the switch. So click on your 2960 and go to the CLI. Notice that this is a switch, not a router. And this model of the switch is a layer 2 switch. So it doesn't use IP address. And the only way that we can set an IP address to it is through the virtual LAN. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my document that I edited on Monday next to my CLI. So when you click on the switch, click the CLI tab. And I have put a note that this switch model does not route, cannot use IP address command on a regular port. So even if you, let's say I'm going to simulate this so you can see, right? If I try to put in an IP address for it, let's say you press enter key to begin. And I'm in the user exec mode, so I need to get to the config mode. So I'm going to do enable. That's privilege mode now. And then I'm going to do config term. Just like what you did in the router. Right? So enable and config term gets you to the config mode. But let's say that I want to configure the port, the fast Ethernet port on the switch. Okay, for the router. Let's say that I want, so you can hover your mouse over the switch and it lists all the ports, right? So let's say that I want to configure the fifth port in my case, because I added the router in the fifth port. So let's say, or the first port, for example. Okay, whichever port that you want. So let's say that I do interface, right? Fast Ethernet. I'm going to do -0/5 where I connect to the router. And if I put in an IP address that's given 192.168 dot, what's it? 10.5, for example. You see that it's going to throw an error. Why? Because this switch doesn't handle IP address at the physical port. It is not a routing switch. It's not a multi-layer switch. Okay. So before we start doing anything, we should look at, okay, that this model, is it a multi-layer switch or is it just a managed switch? Okay. So I can't do an IP address to an interface that is a port, right? That is an Ethernet, fast Ethernet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an exit to go back to my config mode, and I'm going to change my interface. I'm going to do an interface VLAN 1 because I know that it has that when I saw that on the table at the beginning. So let me put this up and this up so you can see it together. Okay. So what I do is now I have to be in a VLAN to set an IP address for the switch. This switch doesn't handle an IP address. Okay. So I change my interface to VLAN. I exit out of the last interface and I go into the actual VLAN interface. And then now you can do an IP address command. And a subnet mask. Okay, and it takes. So in this case, like we cannot use a physical port for a routing IP address. We have to point it to a VLAN. Now, in order to access this VLAN, you have to access the IP address and its interface, right? So what we can do is we can connect it to a system that can route to it, to that VLAN. Okay. We can tie a VLAN to a switch port, and you saw some of that in the last lecture, where I can say, okay, VLAN 1 is tied to port 5 or port 6 for the fast Ethernet, and then connect a routing system to it. So we can work around that, but the switch itself cannot route in general. And non-routing switches cannot use IP. It won't take an IP address command. Okay. So to improve, we would have to swap the switch with the multi-layer switch and be able to set it up to route. Okay. Now to get out of the mode, you're going to do exit twice. And then I want to see if it's listed with my VLAN that I had set with an IP. So you're going to do press enter key to get to your privilege mode and do a show IP interface. 3 separate words, show IP interface. And you should see you should see VLAN IP address like after a few lines. You can also show VLAN interface, so there are ways to look at it. But if you do a show IP interface, it looks for the ports that have interface on that switch. And that's the only IP address that we put in on the switch is through the VLAN. Okay? Does that logically make sense? And you see that when you put in the subnet mask, it automatically adds the CIDR 24 because it's 255.255.255.0, which is the CIDR 24. Okay, take a screenshot of your command line showing that you have added the VLAN 1 with an IP address, right? It shows VLAN 1 right there. And then add that there. You should save your packet tracer. So in your workspace, go File, Save As. And then you can name this Lab 8. I'm going to just do Lab 8 Friday because I already saved one. And then you can point it to your USB. Otherwise, it saves it to the app itself, which is a folder on the classroom computer. So point it to your USB in case. So you can always open it. What I would encourage you to do is, add another router, add another switch, add another segment, and then go in and configure it. You can go from that IP address to the next subnet and then see if that works. So the simulator will handle, as long as you're using the model that's provided and Or you can add additional model to it. But so that's how you can practice without having the physical appliance, right? And if it throws error, find out why your command didn't take. Okay. I'm gonna do part D with you because we should still have like close to 50 minutes, and this isn't gonna take very long. Where can I find this file? It's on your lab assignment page. So go to your lab assignment and you should be able to download the packet tracer file. This was left over from the last lab, so I wanted to wrap it up and make sure you know how to do it. Yeah, last week we skipped part D, remember? Okay, so go down to lab 8 and you should find the file here. It says part E, but I meant the last part of the lab. Okay, so download it, save it to your download folder. So once I'm done with this, right, I can just go File, New. And I'm gonna open the download file. So File, Open, and go to your downloads, right? And point to the 2.1.1.2 cabling devices, click Open. So these are labels that they create. We just need to create a network with the appliance. So you're just gonna put the computers where the PC are and the switches where the switches are and connect them together. Okay. So I'm supposed to have, right? I dropped in the PC and the switches and then I connect them together. Keep in mind that when you connect a switch to a switch, and Cisco devices router to switch using the same port type, you have to do a crossover Ethernet. Okay, so let's do it together. So once I go File, Open, and open my downloads, I have the labels placeholder. On the left side, I just click End Devices on the bottom and drag in your PC. So I have PC 0 and place it above the name. PC 1 and PC 2. And then go to your network devices, find the 2960 switch. So click on the switch option and then drag the 2960 in, both of them. And then repeat with the PC on the right side. Now from PC to switch, we know that we're using a straight through. So click the lightning bolt, click the solid black line, connect the PC fast Ethernet 0 to switch 0 with the first port, 0/1. Repeat for, so solid cable for for straight through fast Ethernet 0 to 0/2. Same thing with the third PC. It's only fast Ethernet port to port 3 for the switch. Now from switch to switch, we have to use the dotted straight line, which is the crossover. Click that. Click the switch 0, connect port 4 to, you can do 4 to 4 or 4 to 1. I'm going to do 4 to 1 because I'm going left to right. But technically, we should do switch first port to switch first port and then subsequently the others. And then again, solid line, PC, fast Ethernet to the second switch. port 2. So just go down the list, it's okay. So that way you can track it. And then wait for it all to turn green, screenshot it, and answer the questions, and there is your lab. Okay, so what have you learned about router and switch configuration upon completing the packet tracer? We learned how to go into configuration mode, right? Global configuration mode. We learned how to access the interface, which is the port of your router or switch, and be able, for the router, we set IP address with the subnet mask. We know how to activate the port with no shutdown command. And we learn how to show using show command to display the configuration after we exit out of the config mode. Okay. Yeah. And then on the switch, we learned that we cannot set IP address to the port because the model doesn't handle IP. We use VLAN to set up our IP addresses. And then we also learned to use the right cabling for devices. Like a straight through for different type of devices like PC to switch and crossover for switch to switch connection. And there you have it. You can add more to it, what you have taken away from the lab exercise itself. So don't forget to screenshot your last
Bless you.
network. And then you can save this, right? So if you click file, save as, it's gonna try to save it as the file that you download. That's okay because you edit it. So click yes, I can save it over. And remember that it's in the downloads folder. So if you want a copy of your work, you just save a copy to your USB. Okay. All right, I'm gonna stop recording, but I will leave this up. If you have questions or concern about your lab, call me. I'll come over to help you.